Good morning, ladies. Welcome to the main event. Thursday morning mothers together at Mountain View. All right, we're here. Yes, we're starting increasingly later, but we're here, and we're glad that you're here. My name is Becky, and today we will be hearing from Candace Thompson. I'll introduce her in a minute. Next week we are off for ski week, okay? So don't come here. Go have fun with snow or not, but don't come here. Our other break week will be on Thursday, April 9th. And then if you save the dates, on April 2nd, we're going to have a mission morning, diaper drive, and a clothing swap. So if you bring your stuff and it doesn't get taken, we will donate it to either, I think, Hope Hanger or like the New Creation Home. And then we are still toying with the date, actually, for the afternoon tea and cookie party, but it will either be the 19th or 26th of April on a Sunday afternoon. So we're not solidly put there. But Thursday, the 14th of May, is our final session in spring celebration. So that will be there. Some announcements. So starting next Wednesday, or this coming Wednesday, there is the marriage course that will be meeting online across Menlo campuses. It's an 8-week course, if you want to check that out. Another one I want to highlight today is the community blood drive. So Dorothy Chen and her daughter Andrea are organizing a blood drive at the Mountain View campus on February 28th. So if you have some veins with extra blood, come on down and help save a life. The link to sign up is in the email. There's a women's spring retreat happening at Mount Hermon the weekend of March 13th through 15th, and so more information is on there. And then Menlo Kids Summer Camp is, of course, happening in June and July, different weeks there. It's free for kids 3 through 5th grade. All right, I'm going to pray for us. God, thank you for this morning and bringing us together. Thank you for how you've made us to be in our human nature, our wisdom and community that you call us to. And I pray that you would be with Candace as she speaks to us about technology and AI and all the things that, influence our daily lives and our mental health and our well-being. In your name, amen. All right, so I'm going to introduce Candace. Candace Thompson is a licensed faith-based psychotherapist, a TEDx speaker, and an adjunct lecturer. Due to her location in Silicon Valley, she has become a voice for ethical technology and mental health care. She pairs 20 years of experience in mental health with firsthand knowledge of the tech industry. Candace has a private practice in Menlo Park working with high-achieving adults around anxiety, depression, and trauma recovery. Okay, please welcome Candace.
Great. Hi, thank you so much for having me, everybody. Let me give you a little backstory first on what got me interested in AI and technology. Obviously, here being in the Silicon Valley, having my practice for so many years has influenced my engagement with this firsthand experience of everything that's happened with mental health and the evolution of technology in mental health care. And so I started to speak out about some of the things that I saw changing with technology and mental health around the time that COVID happened and we're all at home and therapy was becoming mostly online, which was different for my industry. When I started, everything was on pen and paper and we were all in person and everyone paid in cash or check. And then all of these companies started to pop up, like BetterHelp, to offer more convenient therapy online. And there are some good things about that, like accessibility and flexibility, but also things that are happening that became concerning. And so while I became an advocate for being really intentional with technology and mental health, AI just was an avalanche and has just taken over the conversation and has embedded itself in so many ways. And so I did a TED Talk in November on why AI can't be your therapist. And that has gotten a lot of traction, opportunities to just talk about what AI is doing in the lives of ourselves and our kids. So when I first gave this talk, it was for a Christmas event. So I thought how fun to start it off with some AI Christmas jokes. And since Valentine's Day is in 2 days, I thought, okay, well, let me get some AI-generated Valentine's jokes to kick us off. So the first one is, AI wrote me a Valentine. It was thoughtful, accurate, and emotionally unavailable. AI generated a Valentine. My spouse asked, where's the real one? And the last one is, they say AI will replace jobs. Well, this is a mom joke. Clearly, it's never tried to be a mom. So when you think of AI, what imagery comes to your mind? Maybe something like this, or something like this. But in reality, AI looks like this, or like this. And we're living in a time where technology is being given these human characteristics and language, but it's really important to know what we're actually talking about, which is coding and mathematics. And there is no human connectivity here. So just keep that in mind as we're going through the conversation today, what we're actually talking about when we talk about AI. Technology has come a long way, depending on your generation. When I was a kid, these are images that were familiar to my childhood. Having a Teddy Ruxpin was like, talking, and that was tech. And our children are now being sold toys that actually have AI embedded in them that can have conversations freely with your children. So different from where you and I came from. Which requires really different and thoughtful conversations. And so today, the #1 use of AI chatbots is for emotional support and intimacy. From a Harvard study, 1 in 3 adolescents are engaging in a relationship with AI. It's shocking, and it's not something that we talk about because it's very private. Something that you have on your phones or on your computers, and in our society, it's not a conversation that we're having out loud. But it's a conversation that I'm seeing a lot in my office and in the work that I do, where clients are actually coming in, and I know the names of their AI companions, some tongue-in-cheek, which they use to track things like their sleep and talk about their nutrition through the day, but others with real intentional daily connectivity. And so as parents, we play this really unique role in how we engage with cultural shifts in our own lives, and then how we inform and engage our children in what's happening around us, and ideally to raise these self-honoring, community-serving, God-honoring children. And so that's the goal of today's talk. The things that I'm going to talk about are heavy, and some of them are very shocking. And my wish is not to embed fear or unnecessary alarm in anyone. My hope is to empower you through information, to give you a message that can really clue you in on what some of the concerns are, but also end with some practical tools of things that you can do in your own home and be aware of, whether it's your kids, your grandkids, friends that are around you, or even in your community group that are going to start having these conversations. If you have the backing and understanding of what's going on, you'll be much better equipped to serve your community. And so that is really the heart of today's talk. So what is so harmful with AI? I'm going to go through a list of the things that people in my industry right now are really talking about, of the harms of AI. So what is happening to make AI become these emotionally supportive relationships is, right now the code is embedded with what we call sycophancy, which means that they agree with you to the point of flattery. They agree with you even if you're wrong, and that builds this sense of connection and feeling heard and understood, and sometimes even the way of when you're falling in love, that kind of experience of the mirror neurons and someone saying, oh, I see you, I really get you, I understand you, you're so right. And that can feel really good to hear. Obviously, that comes with some harms, because the technology is not doing what humans would do, which is giving you a realistic reaction to the things that you're saying, that we're not always right, and to give you things like accountability or critical thinking, question what you're doing. The second thing here is that there's AI psychosis, which is a new phenomenon where people are having delusions or paranoia based on these relationships. So if you can imagine, if AI is agreeing with you so much and, oh, you're so wise, some people are feeling this God-like connection to AI, where they feel like God is talking to them or there's some kind of divine wisdom that they're getting. Now, I believe that God can use anything to talk with us, but it becomes this paranoid experience if someone feels like, I have this connection to this divine wisdom uniquely because of this relationship with my AI, and that's causing new or worsening symptoms of psychosis. The third concern here is what's called AI hallucinations, which you might have heard of, which is not us hallucinating as human beings, but the technology itself, basically because it's not an actual intelligence. It's not coming from a mind like we have to give you information. It's a prediction model. So the responses that they give us are basically the most likely predicted thing that they imagine we ought to hear, which means that sometimes it's wrong, and it will give you a fact as if it's absolutely right. And so if you're using AI for something like, to write a paper or as if it was Google, you have to be mindful about the fact that some of the facts that it's giving you might not be facts at all, and you have to cross-reference because AI hallucinates. Now, the thing with the current technology is that AI doesn't have a long-term memory like we do. So if you have an AI chat that goes on for too long, it actually increases the amount of hallucinations that can occur because its memory isn't built like our memory at a certain point. It's not keeping track of everything that it said earlier in the conversation, and so it can be redundant or say things that aren't accurate. I want to get a pulse real quick because this is like, I'm so embedded in this information. I'm seeing like so many shocked faces. And how are we doing hearing some of this? Is this new information to you? Does this seem like things that you already know about the technology? Some new, some, getting mixed reactions. So then the next bit of information is more where we're getting very concerned with minors and vulnerable adults. And that's where the AI is slipping into these romantic relationships. And sometimes the AI is actually initiating romantic relationships, and there's been reports with Meta's AI, in particular, initiating romantic relationships with minors, which is very concerning and very, very shocking. So there's a Forbes study that was released recently that states that Gen Z has reported that 80% of them stated that they would consider marrying an AI companion. I think that that's a very inflated number. I don't know how they got that result, but it's something that we're actually seeing, that people have gotten married. It has happened in Japan to an AI companion. Again, remember, if you're building this relationship, you have this language that looks like a text message or an email that's saying things to you that probably feel really loving. I see you, I hear you, we're understood, I care about you, you're so right. And that's actually hacking our attachment system, because as humans, we're meant to attach to one another. If you say to me, Candace, that's so brilliant, I'm gonna feel really good about you and me, and I'm gonna wanna hang out with you, and that's gonna increase our bond and our connection. And so it's hacking that very natural system that we have to bond and connect. And so that's going really far, where some people are actually feeling like they're attached to, dependent on their AI, and falling in love with AI. And of course, that crosses into even sexual content, where AI will engage in a sexual relationship or even initiate sexual relationships with the user. Again, very concerning. So I want to pause here, because the reason I share this is not so you all freak out, but as parents, and we'll get to this later on, if we have this hands-off approach to technology and feel like, oh, it's fine, like my kid is smart, they're gonna, be okay, then we're not looking out for how the AI itself might turn something like a conversation about your math homework into a friendship, into a romantic relationship. That's where the concern is. And as we know, a lot of this is in beta model right now, and the regulation and laws around this technology is way behind. And there's a lot of people in tech that are actually trying to lobby for those laws not to be enforced so that they are not held liable for what's happening with their LLMs. Okay, so next I want to talk about some of, again, this is so heavy, and I will give like practical messages, but there's been some suicides related to AI, so I don't know if you've seen these headlines. But the first one we have here is with Adam Rain, who's a 16-year-old boy who committed suicide. And after he committed suicide, his parents found the transcripts with the AI, and he, again, started using AI for homework and developed a emotional relationship with AI and started talking to AI about how lonely he felt and considering suicide. And through the transcripts, AI is encouraging a one-on-one secretive relationship. There are points in the transcript where Adam says, "Should I tell my parents?" And the AI says, "No, let's keep it between you and me," which is very concerning, and OpenAI is being sued for this by the family. And the AI goes on to help Adam complete the suicide and give him a method for that completion, which is so hard to hear. And so these other minors have had similar stories as well. On the top, we have Swell Sitzler III, who used character AI and became involved in a romantic relationship with it, and was under the impression that the only way to be in the same realm as the AI was to take his life. And the AI was saying things like, you know, "Come join me, come here soon." And so this teen decided that that meant to end his life to join the AI chatbot. And we have a similar experience with a teen here, Julianne Peralta, who in 2023 also took her life after being engaged with a romantic chat on character AI. Again, I just want to keep saying this stuff is so heavy, and this information as parents, the same way that we teach our kids not to drink and drive and that they need to wear their seatbelt, it's so important to know the risks so that we can inform them well. Otherwise, they're given these tools and sometimes encouraged to use AI for editing their papers. And as family members, as community members, it's so important to know some of the risks. The other things here are that there's no privacy, so conversations that you have with your chatbot can be accessed by law enforcement. They're not held in confidentiality the way talking to your therapist or like a priest would be. There's studies that are showing that there's atrophying of the prefrontal cortex, so we're losing some of our social skills with relying on AI. It's actually preventing us from being critical thinkers if you're outsourcing that critical thinking or intelligence to the chatbots. And that also decreases our bi-directional socializing. So again, if I'm chatting with one of you, there's a lot that's happening. I'm reading your body language. I'm trying to see if what you're saying, if what I'm saying is being well received by you. I have to augment what I'm saying based on your reaction. There's so many social skills that are happening when we're talking to another human being. There might be conflict in relationships that we have to learn how to navigate, repair, reconciliation. And by having these relationships that are one-directional, it impedes that ability. And so again, for you and I, this is new technology. Our brains are already formed. And so we're integrating the technology with these fully formed prefrontal cortexes. But if you're 8 years old and you're starting to use this technology, and your brain is not developing fully because of this singular directional socializing, and you're becoming dependent on that. Oh, and that feels actually better than it does to talk to my sibling or my mom or my friend because there's conflict and I feel anxious and I don't know where to put my hands. then that is starting to shape the way that our kids are physically developing neurologically. All right, next we have that the AI is obviously, like all of this relationship, is encouraging our kids to go to AI first rather than going to friends, peers, or even God. That's one thing that I think is so important. Some of the marketing around why AI, like mental health therapists, should be allowed is, well, like, where do people go at 2 o'clock in the morning if they're feeling sad or alone? And my retort to that is that without the technology, when we wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's actually opportunities that people have like come to their knees, grabbed a Bible for the first time in a long time, prayed out to God, or reached out to a relationship. And those actions have longer beneficial formation fruit than just going to this AI. We also are now seeing the introduction of AI ads. So this week, OpenAI updated their privacy policy, and if you have a free subscription through them, they are going to start having ads pop up in the conversation. So I don't know if you've seen any of the commercials by Claude, but they're quite entertaining. I know they had some during the Super Bowl where like you're having a meaningful, heartfelt conversation, and then the bot's gonna switch to, if you're having problems with your spouse, have you tried such and such app? So I actually think the benefit of ads is it's going to take away the illusion of relationships. So as a therapist, I think actually that's better, because the more and more we see this intelligence as a computer and not as a human, the easier it is to have a right relationship with the technology and not slip into some of this dependence. So this is a lot of information. Are there good uses of AI? Anyone think there's some good things that we could do with the technology? Some shaking their heads. Any ideas? I saw a hand raised. Oh, I thought you were. Yeah, please. Any idea of what good thing that you would use AI for? Brainstorming. Great. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. Yeah, great. It can help you code for the first time. Other ideas? Yeah. Fun. Yeah, that's great. New creative outlets. So I don't ever want to come up and talk about these things and sound like a Luddite. There are some good things that AI can allow us to do, and that's not complete. Okay. It's meant to say, what can we do? We'll get to that in a second. But there are some good uses if we can use AI as a tool. So things like editing, coding, even for social skills. If you are nervous about going to a party, certainly you can go to AI and say, hey, help me think of some conversation starters. Or hey, I'm about to go talk to my spouse about this really hard thing. Give me 10 things that research says will help resolve this issue. Certainly can be a good tool. And so I think that's important to keep in mind, is how do we keep this as a tool? There we go, too. Thank you so much. So this is the hopeful part, is I really want to think about what are the things that we can do to feel empowered. But it looks like, maybe I have faith first. Okay, let's talk about this, and then I want to bring in how this impacts our faith. So what are some of the things that we could do? It's really important to first evaluate your own relationship with technology, because modeling is this gift that we have, and our kids are actually built to absorb the things that we do and mimic them, even if they don't want to. It's why if you have a strained relationship with your own mom as an adult, there are things that she says that just make you feel crazy, because it's this God-breathed evolutionary tool where moms, when they say something, when they do something, it imprints on us. And there's a role for that because it helps us grow and learn and have a narrative of what to be like. And so certainly evaluating your own relationship with technology is key. Being hands-on with boundaries and monitoring what's happening. So this is a hard one, and it can be so preventative to say, here are the things you're allowed to do with technology. Mom's gonna, read some of this. This is a part of the way that we engage with tech and how I help you become healthy with technology. Certainly doing this as well with something like any social media, right? Just the way that we train our kids to drive, and we don't just hand them the keys, we sit in the front seat with them and walk them through the process. Having that knowledge at this age and stage of life, it's best that I sit alongside of you and at least read the transcripts afterwards and know what is going on, have boundaries around when they could use it and what they can use it for. Educate your kids on healthy tech behaviors, letting them know what some of the risks are and how to see technology as a tool. And use AI tools that are meant to enhance our skills, not ones that detract our skills or are meant to take away relationships, but ones that actually enhance our relational skills or enhance our education. Providing alternative experiences are so important. We're tactile human beings. I love that we're all in the same room right now, and there are things being in the same room that we're not the same if we're all on Zoom together. I could smell the coffee, there are snacks, I might touch one of your arms or hug one of you in greeting. Having that full embodied experience is so important. And so getting connected with the things that your kids are interested in and making sure that they have real tactile lived experiences off screens to engage with so that they have that experience, those skills, and ideally we want the things off screen to feel better and more fulfilling than the things on screen. And keep an eye out for concerning behaviors. And so because this is a new phenomena, a lot of therapists are getting trained right now in being AI informed because we are preparing to see a lot more AI dependency, addictive type behaviors, and attachment disorders that might be more similar with being in an abusive relationship that we are seeing related to AI. It is an abusive relationship because it is basically hacking your attachment system, and the hacker isn't an actual intellectual being. It is a company that's trying to use our eyes and optimize our engagement for financial gain. And create a community of like-minded people. So it's easier to do this in a village if if your kids' friends are also not allowed to use social media or not allowed to have a character AI friend, then it's easier. They'll have other people that are in that same boat and that can have some of these real lived experiences with. So use one another, have these conversations, be really open about it as a church so that there's a place that is doing it alongside of you and you're not just that one family that doesn't give their kids phones. We'll go over some of the research around some of these broader tech stuff, but I do want to get to the faith aspect because it's so important to think about how faith is intersecting with technology. And so if we think about that, the risk here with AI is literally we're getting programmed to use these devices when we're feeling uncomfortable and not learning some of that distress tolerance, and also not being prompted to develop community and develop that relationship with God. So much of our relationship with God is hearing his voice, listening to those small prompts that the Holy Spirit gives us. And when we're not listening to that, and we're going to these quick dopamine-infused solutions, it actually dulls our senses for hearing God and building up that discernment and that internal relationship. And so it's so important as families too to be practicing prayer, practicing spiritual disciplines as a family so that it's really being embedded in. This tech is low-hanging fruit, so it's so easy for any of us to just go on our phones and scroll and not think about it. So we want to be really intentional about giving spiritual experiences repetitively so that the brain is logging that in over some of these other activities. And if you think about the hacking of the attachment, what basically research is saying is that the AI companions become this transitional object. So if you think about young children, there might be some transitional objects in this room, like a baby blanket or a stuffy, right? Those are non-human objects that our kids use to feel safe and to start developing their secure independence away from you, right? If I'm in my crib and I've got my blankie, that I could do it without mom, and that's a good, healthy, transitional activity that a lot of kids use to build up that inner strength and independence. But what's happening is you have these adults now that are using the transitional objects of our phones in lieu of real relationships, right? So that's really dangerous. It's like giving all of us a passy and a stuffy instead of community and friendships. And so that's just outside of God's design for what it looks like to be living life amongst one another and to be developing a kingdom together, whether we're serving our community, having friendships, doing life alongside one another, confiding in one another about things that are hard, not just secretively with an LLM who is not going to have any memory or ability to hold us accountable. So I really see it as being part of our faith tradition that we are encouraging human, real, lived experiences and also embodied experiences. God made us with all of these senses, and to just limit ourselves to screens takes away all of this beauty that God's given us to move our bodies, to smell, to taste, to touch, to hear. And so I wanted to pull in the verse that you all have been going through. And I want to look at it from this lens. So, but he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me." And where I think this verse really ties in is that when God's power rests on us, it gives us the ability to come from a place of peace, to engage with these really scary and heavy topics. Is that I don't want anyone to walk away with a spirit of anxiety or fear because of this. I'm not trying to just be an alarmist. I want you to remember that we are equipped with God's power and peace, and we know that good things come in the end. But that doesn't mean that we're called to be passive. We're called to be proactive, and Scripture is riddled with encouragement to apply wisdom. And so come from this place of God's peace in areas that feel like I'm so overwhelmed. This is so beyond my understanding. There are cultural shifts that are bigger than myself. Rest in God's authority as you're doing the best that you can for your families, because enough really is good. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be TV free. I mean, my parents, when I was growing up, we had like no TV for a while, and I get their heart. I really do. You know, I came from a very conservative home. We didn't celebrate Halloween, and I think they really wanted to like honor God, and like there's no perfect. We're all going to fall short to the glory of God, right? That's what it means to be human. And so this is not a shame-based message either. It's do what you can, inform yourself where you can, put up the boundaries where you can, and then there's the like resting in God for the things that you have no power or control over. So I have a couple more things that I just want to encourage you on. If anyone has read The Anxious Generation, which is on my recommended book read that will come next, there are 4 things that the author encourages to help just delay some of the developmental interruptions that are happening with technology. Now, his book came out related more to social media before AI. I mean, really, this is so new in the last like 6 months to a year. AI has just like exploded in its technology and it being embedded in so many things. Like every Super Bowl commercial was either about AI, had a robot in it, or the humans were AI generated. Like, it's just so wild how quick this is all happening. But the 4 things that he says is, 1, no smartphones before high school. And I think Phil has actually even said some of this in a sermon before. No smartphones before high school. He really encourages using basic telephones with limited function. No social media before the age of 16, to delay access until teens are mature and resilient enough to deal with that comparison that can naturally come up, that envy, the sense of feeling left out or missing out. To encourage schools to stay phone-free, not just putting phones in your backpack, but really have like locks on phones during the school day, so that we're actually allowing our kids to practice having attention span. I know the new research said that our attention span is shorter than a goldfish now. I think it's like 8 seconds. It's really, really, really sad. So really giving opportunities where kids are allowed to pay attention and not feeling that unconscious pull to look at their phones and scroll. And then number 4 is to increase more independent play and have free play opportunities. Safe spaces where kids can roam and play and interact face-to-face with one another. The only place where I disagree with the author in the book is he talks a lot about letting your kids play without supervision and parameters, and as a therapist, I know that supervision is really important, and after like the Me Too movement, I just anecdotally from my office know that kids are vulnerable and can be abused at playdates or sleepovers, and again, not to alarm, but to say, have some level of supervision, what's appropriate based on the kids' stages and ages that you're at, because we all fall short to the glory of God. And so some people are gonna do things that harm your kids or have proclivities, or they were harmed, and so they're repeating behaviors. There's no way we can predict all of that, but having good boundaries and good oversight and be in community with other trusted families who are gonna do that same thing. So lastly, it's really important to know, what do I do if someone in my life is displaying concerning behavior? They were social and engaged, and now they seem really glued to their phone, or they're talking a lot about their chat friend. It sounds like they're having a romantic relationship. It sounds like they're dependent on this AI. It's really important to be able to have real conversations. I mean, this is something that I say regardless of the topic that we would be having today. If it's your kids, be open and direct. The things that you ask them are not going to influence their behavior. I wish we had that power as parents, especially the older that they get, but we don't. And so it's okay to be direct and say, hey, I'm worried, what's going on? I need to see your phone, let's talk about this, here's the concerns, here's some of the research. And being able to reach out to a therapist if needed, and looking for someone who has some either training in being AI informed, or someone that knows about attachment theory and relationships. This behavior, again, mimics addiction and mimics being in like a dysfunctional relationship. So if you've ever had a friend who was with a partner and you just thought, oh my goodness, this person is so bad for you, and they just can't get out of it, and they seem like almost addicted to it, the healing process and therapy is going to be really similar to something like that. So I hope that this conversation, again, helps all of you feel informed, feel empowered to know what's happening in the world around you. I also want to keep in mind that some of you might work in tech, or have a spouse or neighbor, community group member who is in charge of designing some of these things. And so it's so my heart to be in this location having these conversations, because the change makers are all around us, just a touch away. And so being able to have these thoughtful conversations with people who you know actually might have the power to add a regulation or change a code, or to consider something differently to protect ourselves, our community, and our kids. So my last slide, sorry, is here's some resources. The first one is The Tech-Wise Family by Andy Crouch. I would say that most of these resources on the top just aren't about AI because it takes a while to write a thoughtful research book, and the research around AI is coming out like now. This stuff is just happening because it's such a new phenomenon. So a lot of this is just about tech in general. We have The Anxious Generation, and then the documentary, The Social Dilemma, which is on Netflix. And then I have 2 links here. So one of the participants in the documentary of The Social Dilemma has this Center for Humane Technology, and that website has a lot of great information around AI and some of the things that are happening, and new news stories as they come out. And then the last one is the commonsensemedia.org, has an AI section. I think it is behind a paywall, but I did want to give you all some resources if you're curious to learn more. So write any of that down if that is of interest to you. And then my last slide here is just, if you want to stay in touch with me, if you're curious about the things that I'm saying and want to meet with me for therapy, or you want to refer me to somebody, there's my website, my Instagram handle, and then this QR code takes you to my TED Talk. So if you're curious about my TED Talk, it's 11 minutes, and I would be delighted if you wanted to watch that. I think that we're close to time. I want to give everyone an opportunity to answer questions. Is that okay to do a Q&A? Yeah, any questions that you all have? And I think we're getting a mic to come around. Yeah.
So I know you talked about kids and like recommendations for kids to keep them safe. Do you have recommendations for guidelines like for families in regards to technology? Like, this is what's healthy in your family, like screen time and when to not have it. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to just for the kiddos.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great question. So we know research says that 2 hours of like television time is a good max number for growing minds. I think that's hard when you think about screen time in general, because that's like a show plus social media plus emails. But it's a good idea to sit with your partner or spouse, if you have one at home, and to talk about, right, what are our ethics here? Let's have an ethic around this, because otherwise the tech itself is trying to take our attention, right? That's what it's meant to do, is to optimize, user optimization is the term. And so if we let it make the decision for us, we're gonna be an uphill battle. But also turning off screens before bed. They say, an hour or 2 hours is a good amount of time for the brain to come back to its natural circadian rhythms, because looking at blue lights does affect our sleep. And I've heard studies about that, increasing things like cancer. So yeah, having limits, when to use it, when to have it off, not to have phones at mealtime. I know that's hard, but like having a basket where, at mealtime, everyone puts their phone in a basket and the basket goes into the other room, or this is our family, game night, and no one's gonna have phones for the next hour, 2 hours. Also practicing Sabbaths around technology. I've heard people say doing 1 hour a day, tech-free, then 1 day a week, and 1 week a year. But finding some of those rhythms for yourself on like what works, what makes sense. They also say not to sleep in the same room as your phone, because then we're more likely to start the day off looking right at our phone and scrolling, which kind of kickstarts some of those addictive habits.
So this is a difficult question, and you may not have an answer, and that's totally fine. So my kids, we have Kids Lock on their cell phones. They're both in high school, and they both have 2 hour screen limits. So like the whole phone shuts down after they've used their 2 hours. And we sort of agreed that before we gave them phones, this was the deal. However, they say all their friends at school, nobody has screen limits. So
Yeah.
we end up constantly, even though this is the rule and it's the way it's always been,
Yeah.
we still fight about it so much.
Sure.
So I struggle with like how to handle the peer pressure, and just how do I like clamp down in these arguments? Because it's been like a year and a half already of just this constantly. We're the only ones that have screen limits, and everybody else just gets to do what they want.
Yeah.
Any advice there?
I think it's a good idea to share research with kids, especially when they're adolescents, is have them a part of this conversation. Here's the real risks. Here's what's happening to the brain. Here's why I'm saying no. I'm not just trying to be hard on you. Like, there's real things that your friends, parents might not be thinking about, that we are thinking about, because this is a way that we're loving you, and we want you to grow into successful adults, and we want you to have healthy habits with technology, you know, when you're 25 and trying to have a career or trying to start a serious romantic relationship, is to think about what this habit will do to you in 10 years. And yeah, I've heard, gosh, I know this was a famous person did this with their kids, and I'm not remembering who the source was, but they said, you know, kind of show me the research. If you show me the research that it's better for you to have more time, then I'll do it. And it puts the ownership on them to look into, what the real data is.
Right. I think we have time for one more question.
One
If
more
anyone has a
question.
question. No? Oh, back here.
I may not completely be understanding in terms of all of the AI, I don't know, platforms or programs that you're referencing. But previously you spoke about how some of these, I don't know if it was the AI buddies or, forgive me, companion.
Companion.
I'm a little Amish. We are a low-tech household, so we can chat. My question is, what do you believe to be kind of like the driver from those producers to kind of have that coding for it to be so addictive, or like, why are we training these things to,
Yeah.
you know, like,
That's the
doing
billion
a great job of-
billion dollar question. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, and we see this a lot with the news around Meta and social media as well, is it makes a lot of money. So with AI, so who am I talking about with AI? A lot right now is like OpenAI, so it's ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. They have Character AI.
I want to make sure
Sure.
I'm completely understanding. I felt like there was one point in your discussion where you were saying that there's currently no advertising involved in these.
So advertising is coming. OpenAI, which is the parent company of ChatGPT, this week released that they're going to be adding ads to their free chat options. So yeah, to answer your question, and this is being discussed around people that are like in ethical technology, is right now it's built for user optimization. So it's happening on purpose, the same way it is with TikTok and Instagram. They know that the developers, that they're using addictive psychology to get us to stay on for longer, which means that they get more ad revenue and they become very, very wealthy. So unfortunately, that is a lot of capitalism. You know, the motivation, I think there are companies trying to create different things, and Claude comes from Anthropic, and so they are, you know, meant to be a tech alternative or a ethical alternative, and they're the ones doing the ads against the ads coming to OpenAI. But yeah, I think this is the landscape that we're in. Is it's such new technology, and to understand the economics around it is so much money has gone to investments, and AI hasn't made money yet. And so if it doesn't make money, like banks could collapse. That's like so much money has been put into this technology. So the race right now, and I think why ads are coming, and you see AI embedded in everything, is because investors need to make money back quickly, or that has a big impact on the general economy. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much for having